So nice to meet you. Thank you
Huh?
so much for taking the time too. I'm very appreciative.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well.
I would love to know, especially because a lot of my friends and subscribers and people who are reading this are also in the developmental phase of their careers. You built a beautiful creative life and career for yourself now, but I would love to know kind of what your early years were like as far as trying to get into this industry and find your footing in the early days and what that looked like for you.
It was a time. It was a time. It's a much different time. I went to school at the University of Kentucky and I started as a theater major. And when 9/11 happened, I switched to communications and I was like, I just want to get to LA. Kentucky just doesn't have the basis. I always say on the podcast, if you could see it, you can be it. Well, I didn't see shit around me that like nobody was doing what I wanted to do. In fact, it was so poo-pooed. Like, I think it's different now, or maybe it's just where we live. But, like my daughter is a creative. I think to be a creative person and to have that be nurtured as a young person is a very nuanced thing. And it's a very like modern thing. When I was growing up, it was like, you want to be a creative, you think you're special. It was very negative. There was a negative slant to it versus like, we're all creative. How wonderful if like we could nurture that in our children and our community. So I was very, I would say, ostracized for wanting to do this. So I stopped talking about it. So to me, getting out to LA was like, at least I can be in like a community of people where I can at least start to like know what it feels like to express what I desire. So I got out to LA in 3 years. I was like, as soon as 9/11 happened, I was like, forget that. Let's just get out. Let's just get out into the world where I can feel supported. Then I had to learn. I knew nothing. I knew no one. So I landed here and I just was like, okay, well, what do I do now? And this was back in the times where you would like submit your headshot in a clear envelope. So they had to like look at you as they threw out your headshot. Like it was very old school, traditional Backstage West, get into a bunch of different acting classes. Like really I was like on the ground learning and making mistakes as I went along. So I really wish I had, had access to the people that I do now with my podcast, or like that there was something around like my podcast that would have helped me be like, oh, that's how they did it. Like really all you need, I think, is another person saying to you, this is my experience. It gives you some strength. It gives you some hope to be like, you know what? I'm going to take what they did and then I'm going to leave all the other stuff. I also just think at the beginning too, no matter what stage you come into in development, it takes 10 years. It takes sincerely 10 years to get yourself really understanding the industry, what's required of you, what is actually the responsibility of being an actor. I think so many people are just like, including myself, was like, I'm going to get to LA and I'll be the lead of a film tomorrow. Or I'm going to be a hit on a hit show because like it's just me and the TV. Like I know what I'm doing. I had no idea what I was doing. And I call it the staircase analogy. I started in class. I started with a co-star. I started like going up the ladder of responsibility. So I think that just old school, it was rough. It was like there was great years. I think when I started in 2003, first professional paying job 2004, first TV job 2005, first lead of a film 2009, first outstanding series to be a part of 2013. So, like, look, that's 10 years before I got on a show that people gave a shit about, that actually even did anything with my career. And every part of those journeys, or like even getting the co star, like, I remember getting to set and it was a comedy and I kept improvising and they were like, cut, say your line. And I was like, I am saying my line. They're like, say nothing else. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so like, I had to learn on the job. I made a lot of mistakes. So I think there's two ways that people go into this. They go and they get educated at conservatory, and then they come out to New York or LA or any of the markets that are big now, Atlanta, Vancouver. And then you got to get on the ground training. So you might know how to develop a character, but you don't know how this business works. I think what takes 10 years is learning how the business works.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. Because I am very much in that right now. And I have had similar conversations with people as far as you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, if I even think 2, 3 years ago of like, God, if I knew back then what I do right now, then it would, but you gotta just figure it out.
And it's not personal. It's
Mhm.
not personal. So as long as you can just focus on the work and getting better, eventually something will stick to you. I really truly believe that. Even now, the level that I'm at now, I'm great for a lot of these shows. Absolutely. My skill set can like I can get on these shows now. I haven't gotten to a certain level, but now they want a return on their investment. I also produce. So like of course they're going to go with Kate Mara for Imperfect Women. I was up for that. But of course, yeah, of course. So you have to just not take it personal. And I think that when you're also in development stage, the thing that people really don't focus on enough is holistic training, your mental capacity. I released a podcast episode last week about nervous system regulation. And it was this great music producer that talked about how we do not teach nervous system regulation. It's not the most talented that don't ever make it. It's the people that cannot regulate their nervous system. So, and that means for also when you hit it, when you all of a sudden get on a show, he was talking about like we do not teach artists how to maintain, how to shoot to that altitude and the crash thereafter. So a lot of it I focus on the podcast too is just recovery.
Yeah.
Recovery when you don't get the job, recovery when you don't get the audition, recovery when you get fired, recovery when you get replaced, recovery when you haven't worked for 3 or 4 years. What does that mean to your mental? Like that's I think the practice. I think if anybody if I could go back, that's where I would have focused more of my attention in that first 10 years.
Yeah. And it's also a big piece of it for me these last couple years too has been finding the preventative side of it as far as a physical holistic standpoint of, okay, are you, how much coffee are you drinking in a day? Are you taking your vitamins? Are you sleeping enough? Because it's the thing too of when you eventually get to that pace, whether you're able to handle it without your immune system shutting down
Yeah.
or, all of that kind of so it all feeds into that, which I think a lot of most people don't
No
consider when
idea.
they
Yeah.
embark.
No idea when I moved out here that being a lead of the film, meaning I would work 14 hours a day and then have to prep for the next day. And then I have to be the seamstress. And how do I piece together scene 2 that I shot on day 1 with scene 1 that I shot on day 17? Nobody teaches you that sort of stamina. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right, is you have to work on stamina and endurance and how you take care of yourself.
So as far as that journey and figuring things out in boots on the ground when you first came out here, what were and you alluded to this a little bit, were there a couple early yeses that kind of kept you going or looking back, you think you can it's easier to kind of track, okay, this led to this, or things that kind of gave you a little boost or a shift as far as career goes?
Uh, Yes, the first movie I booked, the first audition where it all like really kind of clicked was a movie that I was actually very not prepared to be in. I had an excellent audition. I remember just, oh my gosh. And that's when I realized, oh, auditioning is a different skill set than being on set. But nailing an audition after like 2 or 3 years of working at it and being in at a lot of different acting classes, the consistency of nailing an audition too. Like back when I started, you would go in pre-read, then go to read with the casting director, possibly the producers, then go on with the director, then go on with the studios. You had to do so maintenance of a constantly good audition, not having just like a one-off, right? Like not just striking gold in the moment, not having it be by chance, actually having technique. So I think that audition specifically, that was in 2004. I was like, oh, okay, now I understand how to audition, how to present myself in audition. And then I would say in 2009, when I got the first lead of a film, did with Ike Barinholtz, Claire Coffey, Myers, and I was 1 or 2 on the call sheet. No, 2. I was 2 on the call sheet, and I just remember again that audition, I nailed that audition, and they wanted a name. The casting fought with the director, and the director was like, "No, this is her. I swear this is her." His confidence in me and not going for the namey names that they were really pushing at him really helped me, I think, one, step into that role and start to have some ownership and start to develop a technique of how to lace this all together. And there was a scene at the end of the film that he wanted me to do a certain way. And I was like, no, I don't think my character, no, that doesn't make sense. And here's what can I show you what I think? I was like, so do one for you, one for me. And then when the final film came out, the perspective, the take that I had given is what stayed in. He was like, So I think that was another, like, vote of confidence of, like, you know what you're doing. You know how to, like, start to protect your characters and the integrity of story. And then I think getting True Detective, which was in 2013, that was a 6-week-long audition process. Again, they wanted a name. They didn't wanna see me in LA. I actually ended up submitting my tape to New York. I got submitted to New York, LA, and New Orleans.
Wow.
We went every which direction we possibly could. I was told that they were again gonna go for a name, and then that was the first time I think I started to really study in a way where I was looking at story versus character, and I
Mhm.
just had this moment of kind of understanding what the story is. The team at the time was like, "You don't need to do this, and who knows if this series is even gonna be worth a shit, like, Matthew McConaughey is trying to do something different. We don't know what this is."
Yeah.
I remember fighting and I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I absolutely I just saw something different in it." And then when I went to shoot, we shot out of order. I only did 2 episodes, but we shot it over 3 months. And I went and I shot my first day of shooting was just Matthew McConaughey and I in a hotel room for 14 hours
My
on
God.
a 3-page scene, and when I came back to shoot an exterior of that same episode 3, 4 weeks later, the director pulled me as Michelle Monaghan, who was, like,
Mm.
my North Star at that point.
Yeah.
She was my screensaver for a long time after I saw Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I'm like, "Who is this
Oh,
woman? Correct, this is the career that I want." And then when I got hired to do True Detective and Michelle was the lead of that series, I was like, "Oh my god, I cannot wait to just tell her how much, like, her career choices have meant to me, how much I enjoyed watching her. Now I can't wait to just watch her work on set. What a great, like, student mentor moment that she doesn't even know, you know?" And I was in the cafeteria in between at lunch, and somebody came up and tapped me on my shoulder, and I turned around, and I was in curlers, I was getting ready, and she was like, "Hi, you're playing Lucy?" And it was Michelle. And I was like, Yes." She was like, "I cannot believe what you're doing with this character. I'm
oh,
so impressed." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I was so startled. And I was like, "No, no, no. I love you. No. What did you see?" I was so confused. And when we
yeah.
came back from lunch, the director pulled me aside and was like, "Have you seen the cut?" And I was like, "I don't know what anybody's talking about." After shooting for 3 months, they sent a 4-minute cut of what they'd been doing to HBO.
Mhm.
3 minutes was just me and Matthew. It was just this
My God.
Matthew and I, and then a minute of, like, all this action. And when I saw it together, I was like, "Ho." And then that day when I shot with Matthew later, he was like, "Keep doing what you're doing, kid." He was pushing me to improv. He was like, "Some other ideas." He was like, "Carrie, she's got another idea for this." I feel like it was the first time that it was like, "No, you can sit at the table
Mhm.
and play at the table." That was a big
Yeah.
moment for me. And then I would say another, like, really random moment that helped holistically, there was a series I wanted so bad, was Righteous Gemstones. I was like, this I had an incredible audition. Inside the room, they were saying stuff that I was like, "Okay, I think I'm finally gonna, like, get my series." And then nothing,
Mm.
nothing. And then a year and a half later, I was getting coffee and some woman came up to me and was like, "Your audition." She's like, "We fought so hard for you." She was like, "This, you were, it was such, like, we still talk about it till this day. Like, we're so sorry. Like, we couldn't, like, push it. Like, we were cheerleading for you." And I was like, wow, that was just such a pivotal moment for me to understand, like, what we think of as rejection or what we think of might not be working, or even what we think of as actually working, it is working. It is, so it just was those are all really crystallizing moments for me. And then the final one I'll say is Nick Cassavetes and I did a short film together. We did his daughter's film. It's a
Mm.
short I auditioned for. Nick and I both acted in it, and after the short was finished, Nick called me and offered me the role in The Other Woman opposite Leslie Mann. I did not have to audition for it, that was my first offer. He was like, "You got something, kid." He was like, "Do you wanna come play with me in New York City on a huge studio film?" I was like, I was so flabbergasted that that was my first offer. Yeah, so then I got to go play for a day in a beautiful gown opposite Leslie, and I just couldn't believe I didn't have to jump through any hoops at that point. So I think that's when I was like, "Okay, just keep going. Just keep going. Like, just keep going."
And it sounds like a lot of those moments along the way, it comes from gaining confidence in
Mhm.
what you're doing and who you are and what you bring to the table, from advocating for yourself in the film to holding your own on True Detective. It's just, and that's a lot of it. Some people have it innate, but it's also a skill you can build. And it's also something that just comes from being here and doing the work and getting the experience. And that's also something that I've started to just figure out as I've kept going. It's just,
It all comes back to the work. Your reputation is built on your work. You might not be seen, you might not be selected for that moment or that time, but the more you can focus on the work versus just getting the job, you will have a career. Just takes time.
I'd love to pivot to podcast because I love your podcast. I have a lot of memories during COVID lockdowns of going on walks around my neighborhood listening to That One Audition. So I've been listening for a long time. So I'd love to kind of go back to the beginning of it because just what was the original inspiration for it? Did you kind of get a ping? Did you want more kind of similar to Actor Diaries of just wanting a more creative outlet? How did you start building that? Because it's grown into such a incredible space.
So you didn't hear the OG, you didn't hear the first episode then, so you truly don't know how this. Okay. Well, started because of flagellation. In 2009, had an audition. I had to run in a bikini next to another woman that looked like Giselle. For the sake of the story, just so we know, okay?
Oh my
There
God.
was 15 men in the room. There was definitely a moment where the director was like, "Hey, I got girls running in bikinis today. Who wants to come on by?" Yeah, this is back 2008, 9, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
They were hiring 12 women. There was 13 of us at this like callback. It was insane. Giselle also was sitting in the waiting room just in her bikini while the rest of us were like in cover-ups. So, and the whole time I was like, "Oh God, please, I don't want to go in with Giselle." And then of course they're like, "Alyshia and Giselle." And I'm like, "Ah." So we go inside, we start running. The director's like, You're going to smell a piece of meat. You're going to fight each other to," it's an Axe body spray commercial. Like we're fighting each other to the death to get to this man. I farted so loud. I have never, not even while pregnant, made a noise like that before in my entire life. I was in an improv comedy class at the time. And in the split second that I did it, I looked at her and I put it on her. I was like, "Oh," because we were
Oh,
side by side. And then I was gloating and I was like, "Oh my God." Like, just so proud of my instantaneous improv skill
wow.
until I did it again. I did it again. And then the director was like, "Okay, thank you." You know, when people are trying not to laugh, he was like, whole mouth was quivering. Giselle just walks out the door. I have to go get my cover up in the side of the room. I like scaled down the wall, butt towards the wall because I did not know what was happening with my body that day.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
I like jiggled my way out while holding my cover up. I shut the door. As I was shutting the door, the whole room erupted in laughter. I went to my acting class that night and I was in a comedy class. I was in Leslie Kahn's class with like
Um,
anybody that you can think of now that is a mega, mega star. I was in that class.
yeah.
That's a very well working actors class. So
Yeah.
everybody was going around sharing at the top, like, "Oh my God, I'm testing for this," or "I booked this," or "I'm going in on this audition." And they got to me and I was like, "Ha, well, I farted in my audition, not once, but twice. Don't think I'm going to get it." And then everybody started sharing hilarious audition stories. And I had this moment where I was
Yeah.
like, why isn't anybody talking about this? Like, how interesting. I was working with young storytellers at the time, which where you go into schools and you work with people, you work with kids that are having kind of a difficult time at home. And we're using writing to help process their feelings or tell their story. And then you have actors come in, and at the end of our session or end of our program, we have actors come on stage and act out their plays. And so I was working with this kids that were just like looking at all of us actors, just being like, "Oh my God, you're so great. You're so bigger," that like just this projection, right? And
Mhm.
I've had this moment, God, if these kids could have seen me today farting and like heard all these stories of people failing or making fools of themselves or just the resiliency or having a really great moment, life-changing audition. So the impetus, what I went to initially was like, "Oh, let's do a coffee table book, 101 most
Mhm.
unforgettable auditions." I'll put a timeline in when that happened, like when that specific audition happened in their career. Look what has happened since. I just wanted to show a path of resiliency, a path of like the working actor. Nobody wanted to buy that book. I met with WME, I met with CAA. There was another agency I met with as well. They're like, "We love it. It's a great idea. Let us know when you finish it." And I was like, "I am finished. I have like 200 interviews we can choose from right now." But a lot of those people were great working actors, but they hadn't like
Mhm.
blown up yet. I mean, I had like Jason Momoa, John Bernthal, Abigail Spencer, like you, Jenna Elfman. Like I had like great, great working actors in this book, but none of this was 2011. So a lot of them aren't really hidden yet. And I was a no name. So they didn't want to publish it. So then I just continued to do the interviews on my own whenever I felt like doing them.
Mhm.
I remember Paul Adelstein. I was going to quit doing the interviews, and somebody said, "Well, Paul will do an interview, and I will never forget his story." And it was literally about resilience and sticking to it, and how 3 years later he ended up on a show after literally having to turn down Grey's Anatomy, and then he didn't work for like 2 years, and then a year later he gets private practice. And I remember just thinking, wow, okay, I feel selfish because I didn't stop acting today because I got to talk to Paul. I wonder how many other people might not quit if they heard Paul's story today. And so I was like, kind of like, but I don't know what the fuck to do with that. Nobody will give me a book deal. Like, I don't know where to put this. And about 6 months later, I was sitting at dinner and I was very pregnant and I was very grouchy and I did not want to be at this dinner. And somebody was like, "You should tell so and so who he's got a big podcast. You should tell him about your book." I'm like, "Nobody cares. Nobody cares." He was like, "Tell me about your book." And I told him, he was like, "You have like 3 years of podcast content." What's a podcast? And I was like, this is like 2016. They're like not big at the time. He's like, "Oh, come over and I'll like walk you through how to set this up." And he did. The next week he came over, walked me through how to set it up. I sat on it for like another couple months, had a baby, and then I was like, "All right." So then I started the long form conversations where it became longer. You can connect the dots through it wasn't just me sitting down and being like, "Tell me audition stories." That's basically what I had on a little recorder. And then I launched in 2017 and ended up in the new and noteworthy section in front of Oprah for like weeks and weeks and weeks. So then I had to be like, "Oh, okay." Then I had to figure out the podcast world.
Mhm.
It was not intentional. It was purely a survival, I think, idea where I was like, How do I get to talk to other working actors on how they're doing this where we don't normally get to talk like that?" It wasn't like when I was in class. Even when I was in class, they were all my contemporaries. So Jason wasn't Jason yet. Like it wasn't like, "Hey man, how did you get to that place?" But all these other actors that I started talking to, you could really glean something from their experiences, and I feel like that's everything that I wanted at the beginning. I always wanted a mentor, and I could not find them, so the podcast kinda became that, and then I kind of forgot that anybody else was really listening, like, it just became, "Let me ask all the questions I wanna ask,"
Yeah.
and then I love, 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 love that it resonates with
Mhm.
people, that people, especially in the valley moments, are walking around listening to people's journeys. It's really funny because now we're in the publicity kind of funnel. And a lot of times publicists will be like, "Well, I want my actor to come on so they can promote X, Y, and Z." And I was like, "No, I'd love for your actor to come on when they're not working at all because I think they give a better interview during that time. I don't let anybody come on the podcast that doesn't have at least 10 years experience." Going back
Mm.
to the 10-year rule.
Yeah.
I just don't think a lot of people that just come out here and hit it right away, they don't have a lot of experience to share with us working actors. I interviewed Dylan Walsh the other day. He's been working for 40 years. You would think everything I pieced together, I worked with him for a year. Everything I put together, that's not what happened. All we focused on was the majority of the no's that he got. And then what shifted, and then how many no's he still gets now, and how he randomly chooses projects, and how heated rivalry. He was like, "I just liked Jacob, so I thought I'd go do it." Who knew? Who knew that it would be like this insane sensation? And now he's like the chosen dad that we all would love to have. So you just don't know. But it was, yeah, literally started because of flagellation. And I just followed the green lights of like the desperation of what I was seeking at that time.
Mhm. And just following the impulses, and you never know. You have no idea where things are
No
gonna
idea. No
evolve.
idea. Zero.
And as far as that, I mean, you're approaching 10 years anniversary, which is crazy. It's amazing. You've interviewed a lot of folks. Is
Man.
there anything from having so many conversations that are some of the biggest takeaways for you, or things that have come up repeatedly or anything that's a particular interview that jumped out to you?
My gosh, so many. So many. I think I've released 512 and like on that recorder, I have another like 200 sitting. So I've probably done close to 700 interviews. Sometimes I forget who I've interviewed. I'm not going to lie. Sky P. Marshall
Mm,
was one of the most exhilarating interviews I think ever done because it encompasses how to be a human,
yeah,
not just like how to audition, but how to make a first impression, how to elongate a conversation, how to pique interest in a creative way. Just, it was a magical interview. I
yeah,
really, really loved that. So there's so many great craft ones that just blew my mind. The ones that always resonate with me are beyond just this thing of acting that we're all trying to do. Makad Brooks gave me like a 2.5 hour interview, and it was around his near death experience and then how he's kind of catapulted into his service as an actor. We're just vessels. Obviously, Michelle Monaghan,
I was about to say, I know you have Michelle Monaghan.
that was so rad. She was my
Yeah.
50th interview, and I got to reclaim my dignity by getting to say to her what I wanted to say when we worked on True Detective. And when she walked away from the interview, I heard her talking to her publicist, and she was like, "You have no idea how bad I needed that interview." She's like, "Other
Mm,
than Sam Jones was a big podcast at the time, he has a podcast called Off Camera."
yes.
She was like, "That was as good." She was like, "That was good, if not better than Sam Jones. Like, what a great interview." And she didn't say it directly to me. I just overheard her saying that. And that gave me so much
Yeah.
joy. I think I have a lot of joy when people sit down to do an interview and then walk away feeling really good. They get to retrospectively look at their
Mhm.
journey and what they've overcome. Amy Landecker came and sat in my house. It was one of the last like in-persons that I had. I love her as an actor. And she shared a lot of personal stuff on mic when her life was kinda, like, falling apart and going through a divorce, and then how she booked guest star after guest star after guest star after guest she did 12 guest stars in 1 year. And we kind of went through this whole thing. She was like, "I think I just was so raw, and I just was so eager to be open," and it just changed something. I was also going through a divorce at the time, so it just changed something for me. And when we got off mic, she was like, because Transparent had just ended, and she was like, "I don't know if I'll ever work again." And I was like, "What are you talking about? You just told me this whole entire story
Yeah,
about peaks and valleys of your life and
mm,
where your career has met you." And I just remember sitting holding space and looking at her. I go, "You're going to get a job like next week." And then she got Handmaid's Tale literally the next week. So I think sometimes seeing so much of myself reflected in the people that I'm sitting with,
mm,
or I think a lot of the things that I'm attaching to lately are more life lessons. Like, this is not about a job. This is about, like, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. So
yeah,
there's going to be a lot of peaks and valleys throughout this creative process. And I do think when life's hard, that's when you make some of the best art. So
mhm,
that's some of my biggest takeaways. Ron Cephas Jones gave an
mhm,
incredible interview about how he actually, what he does, what his process is. And I use a lot of his process. Use so many of people's like processes that um, every time I sit down to do an audition, I'm
yeah,
like, "Ooh, what was her name from Orange is the New Black? Salinas? No, Lavia? Salinas Lavia? I think that's her name. She took a 4-line audition for Orange is the New Black and was like, "No, she listens to Latin music and she wears tight clothes and she wears a lip." So I always go in with music, like,
yeah,
so many people gave really great interviews. Tom Pelfrey gave an incredible interview process and kind of how he works through. And then I would say my other favorite is Jamila Jamil's interview.
mm,
Did you listen to that one? It was
yes.
two
Ah, I'm
it
gonna
was the
go.
whole reason
Yeah,
it brought us back to the whole reason the podcast was ever launched. I gave a 25-minute audition story where I could barely contain my laughter so she could get through it. One of like, other than my farting story, it might be the best audition story I have ever heard. And I just think it just brings me back constantly. What's for you will find you. You cannot mess it up. You can't. I think
yeah,
my podcast has like brought me to I've always said like what we do is spiritual. And I
Mm.
think you hear everybody's stories. I'm like, what a spiritual experience to be able to surrender ourselves, be a part of telling a story and allowing another character to sit in our bodies and to separate ourselves from this for sake of telling this story, whether it's making you laugh or changing the way that you think about the world, whether it's Hamnet or like, the other woman, like we're really people are looking to escape. They're looking to educate. They're looking, so what a cool process that we get to be a part of.
Yeah. I had an acting teacher, I'll never forget it, early on, right after I moved here, and he said, "Being an actor is a life of service," which very much is the same philosophy of all of it.
Yeah. Look,
Yeah.
not a lot of us are gonna get rich doing this. That we're not. So, like, for me, I think it's also, like, how we evolve. Like, I learn a lot from my characters. I learn a lot from my stories,
Yeah.
and that's, what a cool thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'm gonna go listen to Millie Jamila's episode after this.
You're gonna die. You have to message me after you,
I
like,
will.
listen to it. Go watch it on YouTube because
Oh,
also
yeah.
watching her tell the story, and then you can see me just being like, "Try to keep it together. Try to keep it
Yeah.
together."
Oh, I can't wait. So you also I want to talk about the Bridge, which
Yeah.
is your membership program. And you've described it as kind of a holistic approach
Mhm.
covering tech, business, and craft. And so, I mean, I have my own ideas of probably why this is, but I would love to hear why you thought it was important to create something that covers all three of those things. Because a lot of people just go to acting class and they just focus on the craft, especially the business side of it. I've had so many conversations with folks about the business. It's a business, and
It's
it's
a
easy to just get into the craft of it and not, and no
yes.
matter where your traction is.
Well, I think you'll kill yourself if you just only focus on craft and you don't educate yourself on the
Mm.
business. You will literally like you will not sustain, you will not be able to keep going. That, kind of came out of a time pre-COVID. I was already thinking about I've sourced so many beautiful people that have sat in front of me and talked about their auditions. So craft, literally craft. And in these long form conversations, we're talking about business. We're talking about like what you should get paid in your contracts. What was your on-set etiquette? What happened then? Oh my gosh, they replaced you. How does that happen? What does that happen over here? Well, you actually got flown out to set and you shot for 2 weeks and then you got fired. Okay. Do you still get paid? Like there's just so much of the business that we were talking about on mic that I wanted to figure out how to support new actors, developmental actors, or not even developmental actors, just have a support group of many other working actors
Mhm.
that we're not alone in this. It's such a singular focus as an actor, even if you have a team, even if you have an agent and manager, you're the driving force. You're the ones that's supposed to be like, I want to go this way. And now you've got team members that are trying to help you do that. But nobody educates you on be like, okay, well, you can ask for this, or you should do this, or this is a strategy that you should possibly use. Or here's some vote of confidence. I think confidence comes from community. I think it comes from content as well. I have a course called Content is Confidence. Like the more content you have. Anna Madrid and myself, we came together to teach a class in May of 2020. We were already setting it up in February. COVID happened. And then our whole entire business shifted to self tapes. Now, I'd been doing self tapes since 2004, 2005, when people wouldn't see me. Anna had started a business called Put Me on Self Tape. She came from the conservatory background. She was getting theater awards, but could not get a co star. So then started taping other actors to be like, what am I missing? Like, what am I doing wrong? And she's such a techie girl. She's like, she comes from tech, she comes from graphic design. So she was really understanding visual components and working with the camera. When we did our class in May, and we had hundreds of actors come through, we were like, oh my gosh, how do we support even how do we create a special community for people that are studying acting to truly transition into becoming working actors? What does that look like? And I had a great teacher at the time, a writing teacher, who always would quote Pat Schneider. And she always says, a writer is someone who writes,
Mm.
an actor is someone who acts, right? And it took me 10 years to call myself an actor. So, where could I create a community where somebody is acting weekly, daily, so they can start having confidence to call themselves an actor and we're focusing on the work? I kind of started to conceptualize the foundations with the three pillars. And then we started teaching live classes and then beta testing them and then automating them, putting them into courses so that like Anna and I are only two people and we could only service so many at a time. So we have what's called the Bridge for Actors, which is the online course curriculum. And then now we have something called the practice track where you can come in and kind of practice what you're learning in these courses. Or if you've been working for a long time, literally come in and just get a practice. Like
Mhm.
come in and practice self tape, come in and practice Zoom chemistries that nobody's really doing. It's very hard to do in a brick and mortar in a scene study class. And then we have business classes where literally we call them rise sessions where you can come reflect, get inspired, have support, encouragement, where you can come in and talk about how you're handling your team or what's happening in the business. Anna's done a really great job on her Instagram about really tackling the news industry part of this business. So we talk a lot about that internally and then how we can support each other. And we have actors all over the world. And that's the other thing I think that's really special about our program is since it is online, we have actors in London, in Ireland, in Australia, in Canada. I think what COVID did for us is it made our focus more global. So
Mhm.
to see how what auditions people are getting in London versus like how we're handling auditions in Atlanta is a totally different how the market's different in Atlanta, the business here in Atlanta versus Vancouver. What's happening? So we talk a lot about the business and how people in different markets can really strategize to move themselves forward, to go into bigger markets, whether or not they should or shouldn't. And then the tech, we got our tech queen. And like we really focus on educating actors how to use the frame to tell a story. Like we as actors can't just show up and hit our marks anymore. Like these self tapes, you've seen some of these self tapes, they are dynamic. I love
Or short films.
they're short films. And you know what? And a lot of actors have resistance to them. And what I always say is know your motherfucking business. If you got lucky and you came out here and you got on a set, you would be having camera conversations, lighting conversations every day, 5 days a week if you're lucky, for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Now you
Mhm.
just have to educate yourself on how to do that so that when Faith gets chosen, when you get to go do a guest star and you haven't ever done a guest but you've been sitting at home working with your frame and with your lighting, you're going to be much better asset because it all comes down to money. They don't want to hire somebody that's going to take up all their time and doesn't understand what frame we're in right now or where the light is. So we get to really educate ourselves on that at home so we can start playing with the big dogs,
Yeah.
right? So I look at self-taping as like, learn,
Mhm.
Learn. Nobody sits dead center in a frame on any television show or any movie unless they're a newscaster, right?
Yep.
Like you need to know your rules of thirds. You need to educate yourself on how a guest star is being shot, how it's being lit, like something that like truth. Yeah, I tell me lies. The lighting is way, way different than shrinking. You know that, right? So like we get to really educate ourselves and then we can take sincere ownership over the product that we're putting out. And I love that. And that's all that we're getting to practice inside the membership. And then we have industry people come in
Mhm.
with my years of doing podcasts and just years of working. Same thing with Anna, she's been working for 25 years. So 50 years of industry connections. We bring that to the table so you don't have to leave your home. There's
Yeah.
so many people that have been able to come and talk to our community about how the business is run and how the sausage is made that I think makes you a smarter actor on what to do next, how to conduct yourself on set, really how to make your own content. You can't just be actors anymore. So I
Yeah.
also look at the membership as kind of
Mhm.
cultivating a new community of storytellers I know a lot of people hate that word, but I do like we have a writing club now inside of our membership as well, where a lot of people are starting to write their own stuff, whether that's a
Yeah.
book, short, or a script. And it's accountability. We need body doubling.
Mhm.
So I show up and I at least write when I'm leading the writing club. I know I'm getting my 2 hours in that week. So sometimes we just need structure as creatives. And that's what the Bridge for Actors really came to be with structure, really focused on how we support ourselves as a working actor.
Yeah. Amazing. I love it. And also, I mean, just producing your own stuff, that's been one of my things. I got a film degree instead of an acting degree because I figured that that would make me a better actor and vice versa. And I've been on the self-producing and writing and stuff has been doing well in festivals, and it's just creating your own. How can I create my own momentum when there doesn't seem to be other external things that are happening. And so, what is, because I'm a big book nerd reader,
Mhm.
I would love to know a favorite book or two or something you're currently reading that you're loving.
Well, I'm currently reading 4 different books right now because I optioned a book 10 years ago that's now in development, a
Oh,
television show. So I'm looking for a couple of new ones. So I'm reading a bunch of thriller stories. So that's like one literally I'm trying to see I might package this and go to Lifetime with it. I'm looking for a lot of like authors that haven't necessarily been packaged quite yet. And then Atomic Habits is one of my favorite books that I constantly revisit. And
I
I'm
just
also
remembered the audiobook of that.
Oh, it's so good.
Carmel and just listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm usually like half fiction and then
Mhm.
half nonfiction. I'm also reading Be Your Future Self now,
Ooh,
which also is really interesting for kind of like, again, like, it says the science of intentional transformation. Like I've always been a big manifester, but I have gotten to a certain age where it's not working for me the way it was before. So I'm trying to learn like the science of certain things so I can intentionally move forward.
yeah.
And then I am reading a couple of Eileen Hilderbrand,
Oh, yeah.
her name. I'm currently writing a fiction beach read book that I'm about 6 months into. So I've been reading kind of a lot of other people's. I want women my age to like pop on a beach and then
Yeah.
just read this cover to cover in a day.
That's fun homework too, where you're like, "Oh, I have to read all of these yummy
It's
beef
so
read."
fun. I've gotten into some romance novels because I have 3 scripts that are going at the moment. So I'm kind of always trying to read things that are inspirational, and then I have the books that I read like 10 pages of a day where I'm like, "Oh, okay, I could implement that. I could try that."
Love it. What would you tell your younger self who was just beginning their journey in the industry?
Take your time. Take your time. I did so much hurrying and indecision, and it would aggravate me when people would say to me when I was in my 20s, "You have time." And I'm like, "No, I don't."
Like, right now, I'm like, "Ugh."
I'm like, "God, take your time. Like, focus on the work and take your time."
Yeah, beautiful. And what is one either kind of wellness product, practice, ritual that you're loving right now to kind of keep you grounded or
Mhm.
joyful or whatever you're loving?
I do 3 pages every morning. I do
Mm,
writing
yep.
done every morning. It's like and when I don't do it, I get really anxious. And then my other big thing, I walk. When I can't figure out a point story, I walk. When I'm learning a new character, I walk. I've lost a lot of weight this year just because 'cause I'm like, I cannot figure out what to do in life or how to do this or what to I walk.
Yeah, bilateral movement is
Right,
amazing.
I'm walking or writing or walking or writing, like, my body needs to move things in order to understand things.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
All right. And then I'm sure I'll pull all of the links for all the things, but for this purpose, where can people connect with you? I'll link the podcast and the bridge and all of those things on your journey.
Amazing. Yeah, at Alyshia Ochse, ALYSHIA OCHSE. I'm only on Instagram. I can't handle the rest.
Yeah.
Just can't. I can only do so much. The podcast, obviously, That One Audition, The Bridge for Actors literally is thebridgeforactors.com. Um, and you can find the courses there as well as our membership is private, but you can always pop in to a public pop-up that we have. And depending on where you are in your journey, you can join the community. I mean, we really want you to be at a certain level of commitment and ownership as an actor. We've
Yeah.
got like Broadway stars in there. So we're all trying to learn from each other. I learned so much all the
Yeah.
time from our community. Yeah. And I think that's all the things. Yeah.
Same. Well, I cannot thank you enough. I know you have a million things going on, so I'm very appreciative of you taking the time to
Of course.
chat. And
Of
I've
course.
learned so much already, and I'm sure everyone else will. And this has been very wonderful and beautiful.
I'm glad you're doing this. Doesn't it feel good to kind of just put it just when you put focus outside of yourself, being like, am I going to get an audition today? I wonder what's going to happen. Did I book that role? Am I ever going to work again? And when you can just sit and
Yeah.
just, yeah, I think it's really helpful.
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing you were talking about with that one audition of you just wanting to ask people the questions that you want to know, where now it's, I'm trying to shift this and evolve this. And I'm like, well, who do I want to talk to and pick their
Well,
brains and learn all of the things from? And
Then let me ask you, what's one more question that you would really wanna ask, personal or not? Because I feel like you start to get into a routine when you ask certain questions, and then I get off mic with people, and I'm like, "You know what I really wanted to ask her and I didn't?"
Yeah.
Is there something?
I mean, you kind of said it of take your time and the patience and the trusting of it because it's.
Mhm.
So I'm just trying to enjoy the journey of it as much as I can, which is very it can be a little bit of a
Sign contracts when you work with friends, contracts.
okay.
That for you right here, especially as somebody who's making their own content. People, I think when they first start out, especially making their own content, they don't want to like, they're so grateful that people are just even working on it. Sign contracts. That is something that I wish I would have really implemented
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago when I was making my own stuff.
Yeah.
Review your contracts, value yourself, even though you're just starting. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much. This
Yeah,
was wonderful.
that's good. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Have a good rest of the day.